Listen, I will tell you more of the saga of Noggin the Nog, as it was told in days of old by the men of the Northlands as they sat by their great log fires. Noggin the Nog was the son of King Canute, who died, and Noggin would be king in his place, but first he must marry, as it is a custom in the Northlands that if a prince is to become king, he must marry within 6 weeks of his father's death, or the crown would go to the next of kin, Noggin's wicked uncle, Nogbad the Bad. So Noggin's mother, the Queen Brunhilde, summoned all the maidens of the Northlands to the palace, and Noggin the Nog looked them over carefully. But of all the maidens assembled there, he could not find one that he would want to marry, and he came to the end of the line without having chosen. And there, standing next to the last maiden of all, was a bird, a large green bird, the like of which Noggin the Nog had never seen. "You're not a maiden, you're a bird," said the prince. "Your Highness is observant," said the bird, and he bowed politely. The prince, the courtiers, and everybody assembled there were so astonished to hear the bird speak that for a moment they just stood and looked at him. "Well, isn't anybody going to say hello?" Noggin remembered his manners. "Forgive us, bird, it's just that we didn't expect you to speak. Greeting, and what brings so distinguished a visitor to our humble palace?" "My name is Graculus. I have flown across mountains of ice, through snowstorm and sea mist, from the land of the midnight sun, and from my master, Nan of the Nooks, I bring you greetings and a gift." And Graculus took from under his wing a knife, and he placed it in Noggin's hand. The knife was made of a single faultless walrus tooth, beautifully decorated, and in the middle of the blade was carved the likeness of a girl's face. Noggin looked at the face, and he thought it beautiful. More beautiful than any of the maidens he had seen that day. "Thank you, Graculus. This is a fine gift, and you have come far to bring it to me. But tell me, the face of a girl carved here on the blade, is it the likeness of a real girl?" "Prince, it is a portrait of my master's daughter. It is the face of Nooka, princess of the Nooks." "Bird, she is wondrous beautiful." And the prince looked again at the face carved on the knife, and he turned to his people, and he said, "Nogs, I have chosen a bride. Here, carved on this knife, is a portrait of my bride. I will build a strong ship, and I will go through snowstorm and sea mist, past the black ice at the edge of the world, and I will ask her to marry me." There was alarm and consternation in the palace. Maidens wept and fainted, and the Queen Brunhilde looked quite cross. But Noggin climbed onto the steps in the castle courtyard and addressed the warriors of the royal guard. "Who's coming with me?" "I am!" "Graculus, they're all coming." Don't be silly. They can't all come. There's hundreds of them. Let's sink the ship. No, choose 10 strong men who have been to sea before, and say thank you to the others." Soon, great carts creaked and rumbled through the streets of the town, carrying the long oak timbers for the ship. And in the palace, the warriors of the royal guard went down into the armory and dusted the cobwebs from shields and swords and axes that had not been touched for years, and polished them until they shone. And down on the beach, the great ship took shape. The carpenters worked away, fitting the curved ribs of the ship, and they sang as they worked, the song of the Nog carpenters. Queen Brunhilde lay in bed and listened to the carpenters singing. She was sad. She had lost her husband, the good King Canute, and now it seemed likely she would lose her son, the fair Noggin, sailing off to goodness knows where with that ugly old bird, as if there weren't plenty of perfectly good maidens he could have chosen in his own palace. But as she knew it was no use arguing with young Noggin, she heaved a heavy sigh, lay back on the pillows of her couch, and went to sleep. The building of the ship went on apace. The carpenters fitted the mast. The painters painted. The sailmaker and his wife sewed and stitched and embroidered the great sail. The grocer and his assistant worked the wooden crane. loading up boxes of ship's biscuits, ham and hard-boiled eggs, cocoa and barrels of fresh water. And Noggin, Prince of the Nogs, stood on the quay and watched, proud of the fine ship that his people were building for him. And on his head was a new helmet of peat and copper. At his belt the knife of walrus tooth that Graculus had brought him. And in his hand he held a basket full of lovely presents for his bride. Soon the ship was nearly ready. The master gilder put the last touches of gold leaf on the dragon that was the prow of the ship, the great green dragon with fierce red eyes that was to guard the mariners against the monsters and evil spirits that lurk in the depths of the sea. Then, when the ship was finished, Noggin took leave of the Queen Gunhilda, his mother. "Do not grieve for me, mother, for the ship is sound and strong. The men are brave, and Graculus will guide us through the perils of the journey." "Oh, well, all right. But you mind what you're doing, and don't go getting cold. And listen, Noggin, when you've found this maiden and married her, well, somebody had better bring me back the news at once. Otherwise we'll have your Uncle Nogbad coming down from the castle making trouble, saying he's going to be the king after all." "Fair Queen, when your son has chosen his bride, I will myself fly back across all that ice and stuff and bring you the news." "Thank you, Graculus, and look after my Noggin, won't you?" "I will, your Majesty." Noggin the Nog took his place on the prow of the great ship, the bird Graculus at his side, and behind them with their oars aloft stood the 10 warrior oarsmen. The trumpets of the royal herald sounded a fanfare. The people of the town took off their shoes and socks, got behind the ship, and pushed. Slowly the great ship slid down the gravel and into the water of the harbour. The oarsmen took their places, and as their great oars cut into the calm water of the harbour, they sang the rowing song of the Nog warriors. "Goodbye, Noggin," called Gunhilda. "Goodbye, Noggin," called the people of the town. And the ship, that had seemed so huge when it was built, now looked tiny as it sailed past the great black mountains that edged the water, and out into the open sea. "Goodbye, Noggin. Come back soon."